Heya Cryptozens, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. My name is Nikodemus, and welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter, where we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. And welcome back on a Saturday, December 24th, 2022, Christmas Eve. Let's see what's in the sack. Now, first off, a quick note about the FTX bankruptcy case. District Judge Ronnie Abrams withdrew from FTX's bankruptcy because her husband works for a law firm that advised the exchange and may have represented parties opposed to it. In her filing, she said, quote, "My husband has had no involvement in any of these representations. Nonetheless, to avoid any possible conflict or the appearance of one, the court hereby recuses itself from this action." Now, this is the same bankruptcy court that FTX has asked to freeze $450 million in Robinhood shares amidst multiple creditors seeking ownership. FTX believes that the asset should be frozen until the court can fairly resolve the issues with all creditors. And it's not surprising to me that there are so many people interested in this stock. It's just about the only thing of value left from the FTX empire. There are 56 million shares of Robinhood Class A common stock held in a brokerage account in New York City by ED&F Man Capital Markets Incorporated. Sam Bankman-Fried bought these shares in May through a company called Emergent Fidelity Technologies in Antigua and Barbuda. And hey, Sam is a creditor, hoping to get the $450 million in Robinhood shares to pay for his legal fees. And meanwhile, BlockFi is also listing as a creditor. Because BlockFi has filed a suit against SBF after announcing its bankruptcy in November. They said that the Robinhood shares were promised as collateral. Now, the complaint from that time states that Emergent Fidelity Technologies has custody of the collateral that belongs to BlockFi. The latest filing states that the $450 million in Robinhood shares belongs to the bankruptcy estate, but asks the court to delay distribution of the shares due to the list of creditors. The filing argues that the court only needs to find that the Robinhood shares are arguably estate property and that Alameda has a colorable claim to the shares. This would be enough for the $450 million in shares to remain frozen. In the meantime, on Christmas Eve, much of the United States is in the grip of a meteorological winter as well as a cryptological winter, and this may have an effect on crypto. I say that because miners were expecting a volatile weekend due to a winter storm causing sweeping power outages. Compass's mining director of mining operations states on Twitter that some mining sites in Texas are offline and suggested using the offline miners to heat homes. Riot Blockchain announced that it will close its Rockdale facility in Texas due to extreme weather. Core Scientific, which recently filed for bankruptcy protection, stated that it will participate in power curtailments to stabilize the electrical grid. The company also mentioned on Twitter that Bitcoin production is expected to decrease during this time. The National Weather Service reported blizzard conditions and extremely cold temperatures in the Midwest to Northeast, with lake-effect snow in the Great Lakes region. These cold temperatures and gusty winds will produce dangerous wind chills across the central and eastern parts of the United States over the weekend. The agency also said that in some areas, the wind gusts could reach or exceed 60 miles per hour. This will cause damage and power outages. These winds, on top of the snow cover, will cause ground blizzards. On Friday, PowerOutage.us showed hundreds of thousands of clients in the United States were without power, mainly in Maine, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and North Carolina. A utility in Tennessee requested that customers reduce their consumption, and some Twitter users reported high spot prices. One user mentioned that miners were turned off and the furnace was turned on due to the temperature dropping down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. That led to a 5-minute spike in the price of electricity to $1.12 per kilowatt hour. Not the best of conditions for a holiday weekend. Now, someone not having a Merry Christmas Eve are a couple of guys from the AAX exchange, because Wigo Capital CEO Lang Haoming and former AAX CEO Thor Chan have been arrested by Hong Kong police for fraud and misleading the police. The authorities claim that the executives used system maintenance as an excuse to delay customer withdrawals during liquidity issues. One of the executives lied to the police about his activities within the company and misled law enforcement. The police have frozen 2 AAX bank accounts, the executives' bank accounts, and properties. Now, Another executive fled overseas with an AAX wallet and private keys believed to contain $30 million in digital assets. So his Saturday might be a little nicer than his buddies who got caught. His properties in Hong Kong, however, were seized by the police. The Hong Kong authorities are working with overseas investigators to trace the funds as part of the investigation. The AAX platform in Hong Kong has been closed since November due to the previously mentioned and thoroughly debunked system maintenance. This situation has left 2 million registered users without access to their funds. Since then, the local police have received 337 reports from victims in China, Taiwan, Italy, and France. Withdrawals from AAX were stopped in November on the 14th due to an issue with the exchange's system upgrade, or so we were told. At that time, AAX assured its users that the withdrawal halt had nothing to do with the collapse of FTX cryptocurrency exchange, as some speculated. So a few weeks after AAX closed, the Vice President for Global Marketing and Communications, Ben Caselin, announced his resignation. He stated that despite his efforts to fight for the community, his proposals were not accepted. He described his communications role as hollow. In Nigeria, the closure of AAX led to former employees of the Lagos office being harassed by users. And speaking of misrepresentation, we've got Blockware, because FaZe & Company, based in London, filed a complaint against Blockware Solutions LLC on December 17th. This complaint claims that Blockware Solutions misrepresented the performance capability of its miners, and also that they didn't have enough power to keep the machines running. FaZe & Company alleged that it suffered losses of $250,000 and is seeking damages. FaZe & Company and Blockware Solutions LLC entered into contracts in October of last year for FaZe to buy Bitcoin miners and related hosting services for $525,000. Now, Blockware was supposed to host the miners at its own facility, but FaZe alleges that Blockware did not own or operate a facility and was not able to do so reliably. The plaintiffs allege that Blockware did not have reliable power at the facilities it was using to host the miners. They said that the miners experienced regular interruptions or curtailment as a result. This caused the miners to experience prolonged downtime and inoperability, leading to significant revenue loss for FaZe. Now, FaZe ordered the machines to be delivered and hosted by Blockware in January, when Bitcoin was up over $45,000 each. The machines only became operational in April. FaZe experienced problems with downtime beginning 2 days after the machines were operational and continuing throughout 2022. FaZe submitted numerous complaints and support tickets about the issues. Despite these issues, Blockware's public status page showed persistently high uptime at its facilities, including the Pennsylvania facility where FaZe miners were hosted. They said they had a 100% uptime for the preceding 90 days. The complaint notes that despite the displayed 100% uptime, the incident history shows approximately 50 days of extended power curtailment at the Pennsylvania facility. These curtailments happened during September and October. Bitcoin mining companies, including Blockware Solutions, have been impacted by the crypto winter and increased energy costs. Approximately $2.6 billion is owed cumulatively by the top 10 mining debtors. And on the topic of suing people, we have Mythical Games suing 3 former executives for breaching fiduciary duty. This lawsuit claims that Chris Koh, Matt Nutt, and Rudy Koch stole Mythical's plans for raising capital. The suit also claims that they used the money to fund their own company, Phoenix Games, while still working for Mythical. The total amount stolen was $150 million. Games are expensive to build. Last year, Koh, Nutt, and Koch were responsible for finding investors for Mythical Ventures, which is a venture capital wing of Mythical Games. In November, they announced that they were all leaving Mythical Games and simultaneously announced that Phoenix Games had raised funds from Cypher Capital. Now, Cypher Capital is an investor that they'd been working with to obtain capital for Mythical Ventures. Nate Nesbitt is the head of communications at Mythical. He said that the company strongly believes in protecting its intellectual property and corporate assets. He added that it was necessary to take steps in this case to rectify the situation and to protect the company's interests for the benefit of employees and investors. So all told, Mythical is suing the trio on 10 counts. These counts include fraud and breach of contract. The company is requesting that the stolen funds be returned and is seeking restraining orders against the use of the funds as well as compensatory and punitive damages. Last year, Mythical raised $150 million in a Series C round led by Andreessen Horowitz. However, the company recently laid off 10% of its staff due to the crypto market downturn. Now let's go from gaming to NFTs, because there's some bad news for Cuban artists that were hoping NFTs would bring them a measure of financial freedom. OpenSea announced that it would no longer allow digital artists from countries under U.S. sanctions, including Cuba, to sell their work on its platform. Now, given that OpenSea is the largest NFT marketplace, that's quite painful. NFTcuba.art is a project that supports Cuban artists in the NFT industry. They tweeted that OpenSea had disabled its profile on the platform. According to NFTcuba.art, this ban affects not only Cuban artists living in Cuba, but also those with other nationalities who live outside the country. This project believes that these sanctions are being unfairly applied to Cuban artists living outside of Cuba. A message on their website stated that the project was banned from OpenSea, possibly due to its name or a fear of sanctions. OpenSea, which is based in New York, claimed that it had simply followed U.S. sanctions law. According to an OpenSea spokesperson, their terms of service prohibit individuals in sanctioned countries or jurisdictions from using the platform. The spokesperson also stated that the company is evaluating other measures in order to serve their community and follow the law. U.S. sanctions against Cuba are enforced through executive orders, federal laws, and regulations. These sanctions, which target economic activity and other areas, are complex. In accordance with these restrictions, OpenSea does not allow its services to be used in Cuba. According to the AP, Cuban artists have not yet been told specifically why their accounts were removed by OpenSea. Some speculate that the company may be acting out of an abundance of caution. Additionally, many of the affected artists are Cuban expats who no longer even live on the island. For example, the founder of NFTcuba.art currently lives in the United States. And in American regulator news, Dan Berkovitz will leave his position as general counsel at the United States Securities and Exchange Commission in January of next year. Megan Barbaro is the current principal deputy general counsel, so she'll take over when Berkovitz leaves. SEC Chair Gary Gensler thanked Dan Berkovitz for his exceptional public service and dedication to the agency, praised his leadership and valuable contribution during a time of proposed reforms in the capital markets. Gensler also congratulated Berkovitz on his 34 years of public service. Berkovitz held the position of general counsel at the SEC for just over a year. This was after serving as the CFTC commissioner for 3 years. He said he was leaving because it was time for him to, quote, pursue new and different challenges and opportunities. Now, reportedly, Berkovitz recently had dinner with executives from FTX, to include Sam Bankman-Fried. This dinner took place at a luxury Indian restaurant in Washington, D.C. The bill was paid by FTX General Counsel Ryan Miller, who then asked Berkovitz for $50. Now, it's unclear what was discussed during this dinner, but I can tell you from personal experience why this is. Working for the government, you're not allowed to accept gifts. Berkovitz paying $50 for his dinner is done to avoid accusations of impropriety. FTX had good relationships with several U.S. watchdogs. That was before it filed bankruptcy in October. The dinner with Berkovitz took place shortly before the bankruptcy. And that's going to do it for us on a frosty Christmas Eve. There will be no show tomorrow. Regardless of whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I hope you have a wonderful day with your friends and family. And we'll see you back here on Monday night. And Merry Christmas.